All right, moving on to my scanner anomaly is more of a general discussion, and I'm glad there's a bunch of people in chat to help with this. It's very simple, and I got basically no notes for it. It's what ships does Star Citizen actually need to be putting in the game in the short to near future? And this is actually a question mostly because of HG Vertigo, and he was on stream, and somebody asked what he thought of the Expanse. Terrible name. Um, and he said, stop putting in ships. We don't need any more ships. All the ships that we need are covered. But I'm like, there's got to be something that the universe still needs, especially now. And I want to try and keep the discussion to a near term because I foresee power creep in this game going insane. Everyone's going to own a carrier eventually. It's going to happen. Just accept the future, okay? But near term, most people are running around in single seat fighters in, like, at most a Vanguard. We're getting fueling in. We don't really need fueling in right now. We are pretty much within a uh easily distance. If we can see our little ticker saying you can't jump that far, so we'll just jump to a closer thing and refuel, then jump farther. But with Pyro coming in and possibly, let's say, just Nyx after that, let's try and keep it within that realm of possibility. So, what kind of ships do you think, both in chat and tree, do you think we should be looking at to actually have in Star Citizen? And, like, I thought about this a little bit, and I the one thing that always comes to mind is a ground based hauling ship, but we don't have reason to go ground based anyway right now. So we would need something to make us go to the ground before we need ground based ships. So that's off the thing.
What do you mean by ground-based ship?
Vehicles. Sorry, ground.
Oh, okay.
A truck, basically, an 18-wheeler.
Yeah.
It always is the first
Well,
thing that popped in my head.
remember the from CitizenCon where they showed the, or was it Citizen, or when they revealed the
Yeah,
Spartan?
yeah.
You know
Well,
that
yes, but also
the
CitizenCon, they had the AA turrets.
yeah, the A, or the missile turrets, AA turrets, all that sort of stuff. We always bring it back to getting shot down, your ship getting shot down,
Mm-hmm.
which is of course going to be a thing you have to worry about if you're in unfriendly territory. But we know that they want to have weather to be a factor. We know that they want um, other other things to factor in your ability to fly your ship, um, in a planet or on a planet.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of different ways it could go. I mean, you remember was that 26? It was the 2016 CitizenCon presentation with the sandworm on
Oh
Lear
yeah.
3. Was it Lear? I forget which
Yeah,
Lear
it
it is.
was
I
layer
think it's
three.
Lear 3. Yeah.
Which was interesting enough. I'm pretty sure layer three is also the one with cultists.
Yeah, and they had a giant sandstorm. They had, I forget what they called the atmospheric disturbance, was the alert that the Connie pilot got,
Mm-hmm.
but basically said you can't continue. You gotta land or turn around. And so they decided to land. And then there's gonna be those things.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to have severe weather that is just not safe to fly in. Just like we have for planes and aircraft now.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine how extreme the weather on non-terrestrial planets is going could be.
Yeah.
um, so we're going to have need for ground vehicles, just for stability purpose, for terrain. One of the planets I've hoped for is an arboreal planet, just absolutely covered with trees, and the canopy is high but super thick, and
Mm-hmm.
so you can only but it's like maybe protected or something like that. Like maybe this is where the Osoians live or something. And you can only land in clearings. There's very few clearings. But after that, you're on foot or by vehicle going on dirt roads to traverse these planets to get to these outposts that you can't even really see from the air. It maybe could only detect at a certain range. um so that's the thing I have for for ground vehicles. That, and me being an FPS combat guy, for those of you who don't know, 0311 is my former MOS, military occupational specialty, when I was an infantry marine many years ago.
Oh,
So that part of the game is totally my bag. Um, I'm a paramedic and flight paramedic now in the real life, both civilian and military. But my beginnings were as an infantry marine many moons ago.
and P9 says
P9
also a repair ship in the near future.
P9, have you been in the Info Runners Discord recently? Because that is a discussion that has been brought up multiple times in their ship scrutiny chat, that I've partaken in, just because the Inforunners Discord is the home and capital of the cult of the Crucible, as well as the cult of the Endeavor.
Oh
They share
god.
a they share a home.
I
And
mean, as far as the repair ship goes, that's just Vulcan.
well, so I love the Vulcan. I have a Vulcan.
Like
I think
the Vulcan would be
anything with
great right now to come in
anything with
because
articulating VTOLs is just, oh,
chef's
so
kiss.
good.
But
Mhm.
the Vulcan actually has a pretty good role to fill right about now in the verse because we're going into Pyro. We're going to need refueling. We have a refueling ship, but the Vulcan can do it at a smaller scale. Salvage is about to come in. And salvage is repair just in reverse, and the Vulcan does repair. What else does it do? And then it does rearm. That's just another thing it can do. Like obviously there's the tech to get over, but as far as functionality, the Vulcan's actually a pretty good ship to get in the game. So
I don't expect the Vulcan to be too far out,
yeah,
honestly.
it's just a really necessary ship for just like gameplay in
Yeah.
general.
We need drones, but with everything that they've done, I don't think drones, especially if they are working on building blocks screens to manage utility mounts and tractor beams. To me that was one of the things. Oh, that, and I forgot to mention it. When they said tractor beams and the like, I thought of drone control.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought it just hit me that yeah, that might be the thing because
It hit me
drones
before. It
drones are
came back around.
not autonomous. They are not AI controlled yet.
Hmm.
Um, so there has to be one pilot per drone, and that's why the Reclaimer has drone pilot seats
Hmm.
specifically. I don't know of any other ship that has drone pilot seats.
Well, the Carrack and the Vulcan, but
Do
yeah.
do they have do they have the amount of seats per drones?
The Vulcan can carry 4 drones, but only 2 of them can be operated at a time.
Okay, so it has two
And
drone pilot seats.
I know the Carrack has 2 drone pilot seats, but I don't remember how many it's supposed to carry
Okay.
off the top of my head.
Yeah, they said they'll
I'd have to look.
revisit the drone room when the drones were going to come back, so the drone room may change in that.
I just know that those seats used to kill you when the Carrack first came out,
Oh,
so everybody stayed
jeez.
away from them. You admired them from afar.
Oh, okay. Hmm. Um, let's see. I mean, the Reliant all need help, but the news van that can be a thing, but that's more of a needs functionality in the game. But what kind of functionality is Star Citizen still missing? I mean, shuttle basically is the thing that comes to mind. Like we have the Pisces and it's the best shuttle, but it was the one thing that I thought when we got Origin was their shuttles that they have. That is an amazing civilian shuttle. And I think that should a form of that should be like the little space bus should be a ship that is sold or is available for the civilian market in the game.
Well, the crap, what is it? The Crusader, the Genesis Starliner.
That's bigger. That's like the
No, no, no. But what I'm saying is going back into concept. It's on the progress tracker.
yeah, but that's
So
supposed
they,
to be the nth degree of civilian transportation.
yeah. I'm just saying, if it's going back into concept, it means that they are likely thinking about putting it into production, which means they're likely thinking about people moving.
This is true. So we
Yeah.
just like they did mining. They said let's look at mining. Orion. What's the other side of the spectrum?
Yeah.
And
Because
then we got the
we don't really have
prospector.
an actual taxi ship.
So
We don't have
taxi
something for
ships,
moving people short distances.
in all the design docs for taxi ships, it was any ship can be a taxi ship. You'll just get paid less. So you can pick someone up in a reclaimer and call it a taxi. You can pick someone up in a Reliant or a Constellation or a 300 or whatever have you. 600 and all the Origin ships obviously are form fitted for people who like to pay lots of money for it. But basically, all of the designs is you can fit people in it. But the component arrays of a shuttle are specifically very little as far as weapons or armor goes, but it is exceptional in the life support and seats department.
Yeah.
So
Seats,
yeah,
life support, maybe some creature comforts, and I would say, depending on who makes it, uh, have either more or less creature comforts and more or less efficiency as far as um,
yeah, I can imagine a freelancer shuttle where
mhm,
the entire back is just seats. These
yeah,
bolted seats to the
a
cargo
bus.
bed.
It's a little greyhound or something.
Yeah, that would actually be really cool if it was like if they took the freelancer. Let's even say the freelancer max hull, and then put some raise the bed up a bit. So like put some whatever platform in the back, and then put windows in the side of the back. That'd actually be a really cool little bus.
Yeah, I think it's something that they're definitely going to be if they're getting ready to reconcept or put more concept effort into the Genesis Starliner. I imagine they're going to be thinking about other ships to do people transport. And I th- I think they're thinking about that because with server meshing coming, closer and closer to fruition, we're going to have a lot more NPCs running around. We
Mm-hmm.
may not get massive player counts anytime soon, but you don't have to have massive player counts to have lots of people walking around.
Yeah.
And so, we may get um, Blizzard is saying so like a larger MPUV. Yeah, I think Argo could do it. Something with more seats. Be able to take more people, especially for a little bit longer distance. An MPUV or like the Crusader shuttle could be good for going from um, your landing zone up to your low orbit station. Um, those really short hops and everything. Moving just lots of people really fast. Making money. But going from station to station, your low orbit station or from landing zone to landing zone with a dozen or 2 dozen people, paying a fare and stuff, and the people there are lots of players who are into space trucking.
Yeah.
They just want to drive around and haul containers. There's going to be players who want to be space taxi and bus drivers.
And not only
It
that,
doesn't.
there are definitely somebody. There's somebody because there's
You
all
got cut
sorts for
off.
all sorts. What is that? We're good.
Oh, Naz, can you hear me? Your audio.
Uh
Oh,
oh, Discord went out. Okay, we back.
weird. I got you.
Okay.
Cool.
There's if there are those who want to do space trucking, those who want to just be an engineer, a farmer, a builder, a combat pilot. There are those who want to do the hostessing, the flight attendants.
Yeah.
There has to be like all sorts for all sorts. Like it's
There are millions of citizens. There's going to be millions more. There's going to be people who want to do these things, especially in a role play
absolutely. And
environment.
like to like even another one, like I want to be a janitor. I want to if I work on a javelin, if there's one job I would want to do on a javelin, it's clean the floors. I don't know why. I just give me the mop. I want to be the replacement of the mouse droid, okay? So there's gotta be someone who wants to do the flight attendant thing. So
Having mopped on board ship, I can promise you it will get really old really quick.
but it's a video
Naval
game. But anyway.
naval ships are disgusting places.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's always one of the things. Um And I'll let you introduce your idea that you had before the show for a ship that we need. Something about vehicles.
So I have a I'm a big Anvil fan. The Valkyrie is my favorite ship because it's a drop ship, because made for delivering Marines to the combat zone. It is
So is
my
the
cup of tea.
Hercules.
Don't even get me started. You're doing this to antagonize me. The Hercules is not a drop ship. It is a transport,
But it has jump seats.
not a drop ship. Um,
If I drop it, it falls.
yes, yeah. The operative word being drop.
Uh huh.
But a drop ship, is um, a ship that is used for moving personnel, cargo, vehicles, and equipment from a carrier ship in orbit to the surface. That is by definition what it is. Even though we don't really have them in real life, there is a definition for it, um, and that's why the Hercules is not a drop ship. The Hercules is an amazing ship. It's an amazing star lifter. That's why it's called the star lifter. You know, it it does starlift like we have airlift nowadays. That's what its influence is it's meant to be the C5 C17 of the star citizen universe, and it does that job really well. um, but you cannot live you cannot put uh, a platoon, company, battalion of Marines and all their gear and equipment onto a Hercules. um, you could move all that over with a bunch of Herculeses over a short distance, but you couldn't have them living on said ship or ships for a period of time. It is a point-to-point transport. It is not a you are the crew of the ship live on it. The people embarked on it do not. And that is the difference between how I deployed when I was in the Marines, where I sailed over on my deployment. I was embarked on a ship for months at a time. First deployment was mostly in Iraq, but we sailed on the way there. Second deployment, we were embarked on ship for months before getting to Iraq, and then on the way back. But you're embarked on a ship. You live on that ship with the sailors and the crew. All your equipment is on that ship, and at any given time, anywhere you are able to deploy those assets onto a foreign shore. That's the whole point, is to have these units forward deployed, and basically patrolling around, ready to respond to whatever an incident may be. um, and it's the UE Marines would be definitely much more combat focused, but like I've done um, humanitarian missions in the Philippines. I've trained with other militaries in multiple countries and stuff. They do a whole lot of stuff. But so we already have a amazing dropship, the Valkyrie. We have other dropships that also fill different, more niche dropship roles. The Valkyrie just being sort of the generalist within. Um, but we don't have, and the Valkyrie is ostensibly deployed from a carrier ship that we do not have. We do not have a ship that would embark a bunch of Marines and all their equipment. We have Navy ships. We don't have Marine ships. And in the UE Marine lore, they have their own ships. They don't operate like the U.S. Marines or the UK Marines do now. And the Anvil Liberator lore specifically mentions that Anvil makes large scale um, troop and vehicle transports, and that the Liberator continues that tradition on a smaller scale. That's me paraphrasing, but it's
Mm.
an exact quote. And so when everybody says, "Oh, that's the Liberator," it's like, no, no, no. The Liberator is the baby version. The Liberator is a more utilitarian Hercules that's just less aerodynamic. Fulfills much the same role, similar to the way some landing ships from World War II worked. Um, that's how I see the Liberator, because it doesn't have room to embark anyone to deploy from that ship. When that ship is forward deployed, it is a point to point transport.
Hmm.
Same, just like the Hercules. And so, if Anvil in the lore, according to the Liberator release, makes essentially this carrier that Marines would deploy from, Yeah, P9TV. Liberator is a starter ship. Yes. Yes. Yes, it is. That's the
So for
best way
this
I've heard.
tier, yeah, that's what they're talking about. Like this.
Yeah.
So this is like vehicle transportation as a function. So we
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
mining as a function, we have exploration as a function, and we have cargo as a function. This
Yeah.
is vehicle transport as a function, not
Vehicle transport, I guess the Liberator and the Hercules would be, like, tied for, like, the medium or the 2nd tier or something like that.
not.
The
This is
ship
not
that I
ground
want.
ship to airport. This is vehicle transport.
Yeah.
The ground
Um,
ship, like plenty of things, can take ground ship. That's not a function.
mhm.
Spaceship movement is a function. Spaceship shipping
P9TV
ships.
mentions a hovercraft, and if you look up the one that the Russians use, like it's a giant like seagoing hovercraft. It isn't like the LCACs that our Navy uses that are from an assault ship, an LPD or LHD type ship. The Russian hovercrafts are friggin' huge. Um, but the my idea is
Hmm.
for a Valkyrie variant that could carry a single heavy vehicle and deploy from this carrier that the UE Marines would use. And so it would basically, if you've looked at the way ships in Star Citizen are built, there are a whole bunch of pieces, stuck together, and each one of these pieces is actually an object container. Um, but if you removed the piece that is the cargo slash vehicle bay on the Valkyrie, and also removed the troop compartment ahead of it, you'd have to modify it a bit. But then you added some sort of gantry arms or something like that in order to latch on to a heavy vehicle. Um, P9TV is talking about like an SRV. You could use an SRV for this purpose because an SRV can carry a large container, it can tow a ship. I think you could use it for this purpose. The only thing is using it for this purpose in a combat environment.
Yeah,
I
you're
would be
bright
very
orange.
concerned. Yeah, on bright orange. But even if you painted it right, but a as a Marine who has conducted many, sea seaborne landings, from different, um, methods, um, I would be very concerned if the vehicle that I was riding in, getting ready to get dropped in, because as going from a drop ship versus a Liberator or Hercules, which would be landing rearward, from your conflict zone in order to offload in a more safe environment, without risking your great big giant ship. Um, this would be dropping very close to your front lines, very close to where the troops are hitting the beach, deploying from a standard Valkyrie. And if you were using tractor beams and you took a few hits and your power fluctuated, and then suddenly your Nova Tonk with your three-man crew plummets to the surface, it would be
Oh,
really bad. I would want something mechanical where it has to be released, um, in order to put the vehicle on the ground, not held up by magical force fields that are subject to damage and power fluctuations. And so I'm going to drop a couple images in chat or in Discord,
okay.
as you can pull it up,
Yep.
that sort of detail what I'm talking about. Where's the bigger one? From other sci-fi. So obviously everybody should be familiar with what a pelican, the pelican looks like. Um, oh, where'd he go? What the pelican looks like from Halo, and this is just a fan art. If you've seen the pelican in game, it can you can use condors and pelicans to carry vehicles and stuff, but you can see how the fan art removes the troop compartment, from the one on the bottom in order to make room for whatever attachment mechanism you would use to drop a scorpion tank or a warthog. But the Star Wars version of this is from the Clone Wars. The It's a low altitude. Let's see, low altitude assault transport, and there's variants of it. There's the I forget what they're called. One is I, and I think the other one is C. I think the I one is for infantry, and C is for carrier for vehicle. I think it was. Um, but you can see how it's got you know a mechanism for latching on to the vehicle, and that's probably some sort of magnetically operated. Might be a little bit dubious if the magnets lose power, but something to latch onto the vehicle. Um, and be able to the this Valkyrie variant lands following hot on the heels of I'm doing the Chris Roberts talking method. I'm talking like Chris Roberts. But Valkyrie comes in and lands, and it's disgorging infantry out the sides and the back, and maybe like an Ursa Rover or some other cyclones or something like that, and then in comes behind it this Valkyrie variant and drops off a Nova, drops off a Ballista, whatever else we end up getting.
Yeah, can you imagine a bigger tank?
A tank bigger than the Ballista or
No, a
the
tank
Nova?
bigger than the Nova.
Oh, gosh, I
Like,
don't think so. That's
so
huge.
the ballista or the Nova is a great tank, like, but it's an assault tank.
It's
It
grande.
it is the basic of basic tanks. It is not a siege tank.
Oh, are you talking about using something like a mobile um oh crap, like a self-propelled gun, like a
No, just talking. So, have you ever seen the StarCraft siege tank?
yeah, well, the like a siege tank though uses that when it's mobile, it's a tank. When it's not mobile, it's a um, it's an indirect fire weapon. It's like the paladin that the army uses. I forget what
AA
the designation is.
tank, P9. We have several. I think the Nova also has some AA capabilities, but we have every rover has an AA
Ooh,
variant,
let's see. It's
so we
these
don't really need a tank for AA.
or no, it's a Atlas.
But yeah, I think that it'd be really cool if we had a bigger tank that was just took up more space, not taller but wider. I think it'd be just really cool. But yeah, I'm really liking the idea of this extra variant of the Valkyrie. That it makes a lot of sense too. A vehicle
Oh,
transport, a bigger
dang
vehicle
it!
transport Valkyrie. What's up?
I'm looking. Well, I'm looking for it. So I should have saved it. I'm stupid. Um, so P9 TV says AA tank when. Um, and so I saw this and it's a fan art thing, and I'm trying to find it right now, but someone did a fan art variant that was really well done of the Atlas, and it becomes a the Atlas front end with like a trailer attachment on the back that has a great big gun on it. And the way it was written up, if I remember it correctly, could be used for both indirect fire, like artillery, but also as a large AA cannon. And I think it was a size 5 or a size 6 cannon on this thing. It was super cool looking. Let's see, Blizzrad in chat. But yeah, I think that eventually there are going to be people who play SC just for FPS combat, and when Pyro comes out, those people will have a hard time getting to where they need to go. We will need things like a military version of the Star Lifter and a military light carrier,
We
maybe even
have a
more
military starlifter. We don't need
well,
another one.
we have the Star Lifter, we have the Liberator. We're pretty good for vehicle transport.
Ground vehicle
What
transport.
we don't yeah, for ground vehicle transport, what we don't have is a way to transport troops and deploy troops, uh, far forward. If you are, if your org is a PMC and you're wanting to take it to the Vanduul
Oh.
and one of the Vanduul systems or something like that as part of maybe a contract from the UEE or something like whatever, you're not going to be able to sorry,
Mm.
apologize. You're not going to be able to load everybody up from like 3 or 4 systems away, in this safe base of operations, and then fly all the way to Virgil or Orion, or Tiber or something like that, and then hit the Vandal there. Um, you're not going to you're going to want to be operating from a mobile base, as you go around and do these missions for the UEE or do contracts for other orgs, because if you're operating from a fixed base, and from using starfarers, loading and unloading at a fixed position and stuff, you're really limited, and that's why we do this way in the Marines now. And for the UE military, they would, this is how they would do it. They would have Marines forward deployed on these ships, and they would use them to land their initial invasion force, and then you would have starlifters and liberators bringing in army vehicles to follow, other larger troop transports and everything that are more dedicated troop transports
Hmm.
versus a landing ship
Yeah, the
or a ship that supports landings,
the
that sort
biggest
of thing.
the biggest difference between the Valkyrie and the Starlifter is the Starlifter lands into an already secured area. Yes, it has
Hmm.
turrets to make sure it's secure, but it is not something you should be bringing into a front line. And you
Yeah.
can tell by the commercials they used in each of the ships. The
See, and that
this
was funny to me because some people took those commercials and like, look, a missile just flew by, and you can hear explosions in the distance, and I'm like, that's not the front line, there, kids.
that's artillery.
Yeah,
That's doing its
that is.
job. Yes,
They
the
are
Starlifter can
landing.
take a hit, but not two.
Yeah, they're
Um,
they're landing at a staging point, rear from the front lines,
mhm.
exactly as you would as hope
And
and
the
plan.
Valkyrie lands on the front lines. It
Yeah.
is much like the Prowler. They're basically brothers from different civilizations. They are
Hmm.
land, get troops out, get out, bring
Yeah.
in the next round. And the Liberator, much like you said, like the Hercules, is also back in the staging area.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it does much the same thing, except for it can bring a little bit, escort or like combat air patrol.
mhm. And
Um,
then Blizzard said, I meant the Starliner, as in the personnel transport. Back when that was actually originally worked on, they were
mhm.
working on a military variant.
Yep.
It had not only a good amount of troop transport capability, also a vehicle bay. It also had a theater to have conferences in for your entire platoon. So that is
Yeah.
definitely has been on the docket. So that will actually be pretty cool. But I
The
like the
UE
idea.
Army could have Starlifters with rows of seats, and that just for flying, you know, a battalion of troops or a company of troops to the front to deploy them.
Hmm.
You just wouldn't, that trip, you know, going from a secure UEE base to the Vandal, the actual Vandal front or an actual Vandal battlefield, you know. If Star Citizen was real and we didn't have this sort of time compression for travel and everything like that, that trip would take days, if not weeks. But for players, even for players, that will most likely take hours to go from your secured base in a UE system, to your target several systems away. And so that's why that being able to deploy from a mobile base, which is what these, you know, um, what an LPD or an LHD with the U.S. Navy, and I forget what the equivalent would be with other contemporary navies would be. But everybody's like, oh, you don't need those sorts of things. Those things aren't common. It's like, no, they're like the second most common type of ship behind like well, maybe third behind a destroyer and an attack submarine. The U.S. Navy literally has a couple dozen of these things,
Wow.
of these carriers for Marines and our
You
toys.
know, I would actually make an argument for an RSI version of the Valkyrie dropship you're talking about. Because
I don't
remember,
care who makes it. I
so
just think
RSI
it would be
is,
easy for them to make a Valkyrie variant because
yeah,
it would require less
definitely.
modification.
Like they already
The
have it.
lore. Yeah, the lore would make sense because of how the lore for how the Valkyrie got developed.
Hmm.
But as long as someone makes it,
But
I'll be
remember
happy.
that RSI is supposed to be the old money, like the people who were here first. They have, like, they own the uh, flagship carrier, the Pegasus, and the battle carrier or the fleet carrier, the Bengal. Those are both RSI ships. Yes, Anvil is the new kind of, they're getting all the military contracts now, but RSI was there even before Aegis was there. So if they're deploying something like back in the Tavar, well, I don't know if Tavaran War, that the timeline might be a bit off for that, but originally to get the ships for the Empire, it was RSI. That's why
Hmm.
we have all these RSI battleships.
Yeah,
Like
I
even up when the F8 was coming in, and that's a relatively new ship for the lore. Um, RSI was there again, saying, "Hey, we have the Scorpius," and that was their uh vote or their pledge for a heavy fighter for the Navy. So not only way back then, but also now, they are still a military contract kind of place. So I think getting some smaller RSI military stuff in the game would also be a cool idea.
yeah, I think RSA definitely needs to be more fleshed out. Um,
They have
I
what, five
lean
things?
I lean more towards Anvil simply because ground combat and marine support is kind of their thing.
I wonder
with
if
the with the Liberator, the entire Atlas line, the Valkyrie, and the lore from the Liberator talking about how they are the ones that make these large scale troop and vehicle transports. You know,
I wonder
that's the
if
way
the
I'm leaning.
yeah. I wonder if the leader of Anvil is former Marine.
I don't know.
That
I
would
just
make
think
way
that
too much sense.
the lore surrounding how the Valkyrie got developed, I think Anvil saw a niche that was ready to be exploited, and the Valkyrie was just one of the first steps. Because when they talk about the ability for the UE military to conduct a forced landing during the Tavaran War or Tavaran Wars, they were garbage. They forgot everything we have learned, in the 20th 21st century, 21st century is about doing this, and before, and they just did not have the
Well,
capability
how
to do it
many
whatsoever.
how many decades, centuries has it been between conflict and the Tavaran War?
Well, that's the thing, is that we didn't have because we went from the Tavaran War with this large scale conflict to these sort of brush fire conflicts, with the Vandal, that just they would just explode, is in intensity, and then we they would just hit us real hard, and take this system, and we'd retreat, and then they'd leave us alone for years and years, not leave us alone, but mostly raids and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, Anvil recognized that, with their, you know, and some people say it's AI, who knows, but with the system that helped them develop, and find the need for the Valkyrie, the lore that talks about that system and the need for it, the uh, that's how, and this is how the UE Marines came to be. The Marines didn't exist before the Tavaran War. The Marines came to be after the Tavaran War because we had no ability to conduct an organized forced landing. It was a bunch of hodgepodge nonsense, and we got a lot of people killed and a lot of resources wasted. Um, and so that's why they developed the UE Marines. And I think the Valkyrie was a replacement for their first foray into an actual dropship, because hundreds of years later. Um, but I think it's we they I think the UEE, when they built, first developed the Marines, and because the Army and the Navy were jealous and angry about it for a long time, I think the UE Marines didn't get the resources they needed at first, and the dedicated assets they needed at first. And now, after centuries of them kicking ass and taking names, I think that they're probably getting the resources they need, and that's why they have, their own Bengal battle groups. They don't rely on the Navy. They have their own, um, they have their own, essentially, versions of what an LHD is, an America class or a San Antonio class LPD. They have these things in game of their own. They have their own dedicated drop ship that was built to serve their needs. The lore for it is really interesting, and it totally just makes my marine brain real happy. If Paul ever watches this, he's just gonna make fun of me. But that's how my brain works.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I can't. I would love to say more civilian ships, but I couldn't really say what more civilian ships we would need. Um, we are just about a half an hour of this, so we are 2 hours 17 minutes. But
Oh
yeah,
man,
I
we
yeah
saw the timer.
yeah. I think the idea of the Valkyrie dedicated vehicle transport is actually a really good, nice idea. Um,
Yeah, pair it with my dream ship, the Anvil assault ship, and that and the Valkyrie. You've got a really interesting combination that you can use for not just military purposes, though. You
I,
can land civilian vehicles. You can use this to,
there's
um,
actually a really interesting lore concept coming up in the universe being made right now. Um, like we have so many human factions that are boiling over. We have Xenothreat versus the Navy. We have the anti-UEE versus the UEE. We have transitionalist versus traditionalists. And with all these frays in society, one of them's gonna break. So
mhm.
eventually, we'll have two different human factions.
Oh, there's going to be conflict. Ooh, it's going to be bad.
Right, but also ship manufacturers will have to choose, which means we're going to have two versions of every ship. Somebody who sells to one side, somebody who sells to, unless of course you do the whole, selling to both sides, but that will get you caught eventually, and then you'll be
Mhm.
burned by both. So,
Yep.
it's obviously a string they can play, but if like RSI has the bangle. If somebody splits off from, like, if let's say the People's Republic or Xenothreat or whoever is anti UEE splits off, let's just say Terra splits off from the UEE and makes this human Xi'an alliance. So they are the human Xi'an allies of the East. They're gonna need their own carrier, and they're gonna say, no, that's their carrier. We don't want any of their stuff. Our stuff is better.
Yep. And Paul has been talking about this potential conflict and division for years. Paul, Astropub Paul, and I'm a big subscriber to that train of thought, because I think he's spot on in his interpretation of the the state of the UEE as it is right now, especially with the external and internal pressures.
Yep.
Uh, and it would be really interesting to see how the UEE got broken up, um, especially given how we know exactly where all these major ship manufacturers have their headquarters and where their operations are based out of.
Actually,
You know,
Anvil would have to make their own carrier because Anvil is Terra.
yeah, Anvil is on
And
Terra.
RSI is
RSI is
Earth. I
in
hate it.
Earth. Yep. Aegis is a little bit more all over the place.
Because they're
They have
terrorists.
multiple operations. Yeah, and they're huge.
So that's another
But
string they have to pull. Fiona Messer is still missing. And there are
mhm,
still Messer loyalists in the UEE. Not to mention,
I'm
we
looking forward
have
to
the
seeing that
entire
faction come
Kurthak
into
in
play.
that entire bombshell of a storyline they can pull there. There is
Yeah.
just so many things to go wrong in this universe. It's great. And all
Before we shut down, we should probably mention, and we should just probably mention before, without deep diving into it,
mhm.
but civilian ships, because is it Bizrad or Blizzard? I don't know how to say it. But he was in the chat in Inforunners when we were talking about this earlier. We talked about a large miner. We talked about because or expanse is supposed to be paired with a prospector. What's going to be the refiner paired with the mole? We have the mole is sort of like the medium mining ship, and we might get a medium refining ship. But does that mean we're going to get a large mining ship and a large refining ship
No,
before
because
you get
the
up to
large mining ship is the refining ship, being the Orion.
the Orion is capital though, and it's
Okay, you're saying the
350 meters.
before that, before okay, above,
Hmm.
medium, below,
Something in
cap.
between.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
I can get
If
behind this.
the Yeah, if the I forget how big the mole is, but it's a huge size gap. And if the mole refinery is sort of equivalent in size, it would be a huge size gap going up to, your capital, almost super capital, I guess, class Orion. So why not something in between? You know,
Where is
Same thing with
Argo?
repair ships. If the Crucible, is redesigned to meet the
There
concept that was promised,
you go. I am
it would have
monitoring.
to get huge, but then maybe we'll get a repair ship that's in between, that and the Vulcan to sort of fill up or backfill that space. Yeah, look at that cute little guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the mole is 45 meters and the Orion is 340. So what
I thought
is?
the mole was a little bigger, but I guess not.
Yeah, no, it's tiny. It like, and I have some problems with the mole being the medium or whatever. I don't know. Mining's not my thing, so I can't really comment on it. I'll stay out of the argument. So what is a pair that you know has a small, medium, large, other than the whole series? What kind of has that scale?
Well, and that's the thing is we have
We don't really have a scale to compare it to.
we have several things that are small, medium, capital. We had that for medical.
Yeah.
Um, Mining, apparently, we have
Actually,
small,
we
medium,
might
capital.
have if we were to pull up the tally. Where's the tally? Tally.
Repair,
Retaliator.
we have small, medium, large-ish. We don't know
So
which way the
the
crucible is going to
Retaliator's
go.
a torpedo boat, right?
Hmm.
And the Polaris is a torpedo boat, is it
I
not?
guess you could say, yeah, the Tally, Polaris, and Gladiator.
So that would be small, medium, and large.
Yeah, I guess the Polaris would be like a little bit for big for the large size,
Mm-hmm.
but if
Not
you're
too much.
including, but because the Javelin has torpedoes, you could say
Yeah.
the Javelin is the capital, and so you could have a miner that is 100 and some odd meters, low
And
hundreds.
and Blizzard said 300, 400, 600, 890. That is another good one. So between
Yeah, for luxury. Yep.
yeah, absolutely. That's another good spectrum. So let's go 890 and
There's a
uh
lot of yeah. P9 TV just said we will get the same professions filled with alien ships, and I completely agree. I think we're probably going to get those all the get the professions more filled out with human ships, but I think they're going to get the ball rolling for alien ships as CIG grows.
yeah,
We're talking
I've
about that
al-
massive growth
I've
for
always been
Manchus.
talking about how there's so much more content than they have people for right now.
Hmm.
Because you're right, they do need a hauler, a touring ship, a bomber, a military transport, all these different ships for every single civilization. Not only the Vanduul, which they already have, but the Tavaran need all their ships backstopped, so we know what they looked like back then.
I could
Um,
see them not fleshing out the Tavaran and Xi'an as much with like as many manufacturers, but still
so
having
interestingly
you know,
enough, the Xi'an have a different way of doing their business altogether. For a
yeah, I
ship
know what you're talking
manufacturer to
about.
exist, it has to be ordained by the government. The
For
Rylan,
the equivalent for us would be like a certificate of need.
so the Rylan is they are transport. The Gatak Rylan, right? Is it right? Yeah, Gatak is the company. Gatak is the company that does material transport ships. That is their company in the government. They are the only ones who make those ships. The Xi'an Scout by Apoa. Apoa is the fighter of the Xi'an. Nobody else in the Xi'an Empire makes fighters. And so that's how that works. So it's super interesting how they do it. And so the Gatak is awfully empty. I mean, it's one ship. It is what is the it's the medium transport. They have different philosophies on how to build ships, and I love that actually comes out in the design.
Well, and there is the rumored Gatak. I think it's the capital cargo that
Ooh.
we had. That if you let's see,
Yeah,
Xi'an
the
capital
really
cargo.
old cargo ship. that was in concept art. Yeah.
Yeah, the leaks. If you Google Xi'an Capital Cargo, it's one of the first things that comes up in images. Um,
Also
so
has
there's a concept image,
a
and then
phone
there's
dumpster.
a um, it looks like almost like a early white box.
Oh yeah, it was horribly bulky, and I think you're thinking of the image with the whole C through it, or
That's actually a whole E.
whole E through it. Ugh. I so that is the ship that later became the Gatak Rylan. So I forget where they mentioned it, but that it's not like the exact same ship, but it is the idea train that eventually flowed into us getting the weirdly straight up and down, but also normal floor setup
See,
of
I
the.
think that ship is in a squadron.
Oh, you think it's gonna? Ooh, okay, okay. I'll be here for that. I can be here for that.
Let's see.
Anyway,
Uh,
what were we talking about? Oh yeah, refinery. So yeah, other than like a couple of different things, I definitely think absolutely we should get them. The problem with refining and a mining large ship is basically mapping right now because we don't have enough minerals to make that make sense. Like the Aeron Halo would be the place you would need to deploy that, but we don't have a need for it yet. There'd have to be a mechanic made. So yes, I can see a near term having more mining abilities or more mining territory, especially in Pyro, and needing a large, not capital, mining ship and refining ship. I like it. I like it a lot. Civilian things be made. We also need small builders. I know it's not a near term thing, but small building ships.
yeah, the Pioneer is way out there, but I think there's going to be other ships, vehicles that um, are related to that profession.
Yeah,
I guess we call it.
think of
I
a
dropped a screenshot in Discord in our
okay.
Discord.
So think
Um,
of like a what's it called? The Expanse is a Expanse size ship that is a local uh what's it called? Factory. Basically, you go to a place, you are the factory, much like the Pioneer is, but the Pioneer is also a prefab factory.
mhm.
So imagine like a compact factory. It doesn't have as many things it can do, but can still get you an outpost that you need, or at
I
least the
think the
pieces to put it
Pioneer
together.
will end up being kind of like how the Orion does mining and refining. I think the Pioneer will be able to manufacture um, structural things, but also um, put them together as far as putting the component pieces of a structure together to make a structure. Whereas other buildings or other building ships or building vehicles might not be able to do the 3D printing part.
Mm-hmm.
They might have to take pre-made pieces from the Pioneer or from somewhere else and put them together.
I would love a Jupiter 2 Blizzard. Like I would. Oh, from the newer ones, from the newer Lost in Space, I would love a Jupiter 2.
I
That
really enjoy
is
that TV show. Yeah,
that the design of the Jupiter 2 from the newest series is one of the best concepts I've seen, and it
it
is so
it
good.
looks so Crusader.
Yes, it does look very Crusader. Yeah. It also looks slightly Anvil because Anvil loves the disky things.
Hmm. Yeah, it
So
does have some influence for
it
sure.
could go either way. They could force it into whichever bucket they'd like.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would love that. And then you sent me a picture on Xi'an Cargo, which is a it doesn't say ship though. And
It's a very vague thing,
yeah,
though.
it just says Xi'an Cargo. That's all
It
it
says
says.
construction and implementation of interior
Interior,
and
yeah.
exterior approved concepts.
Is that
And
a
I think that
building?
is
Is that the boxes? Is that a ship?
well,
We
so that thing that
mhm.
the it was just when it was leaked, it was just called Xi'an Cargo. For Xi'an Cargo
Okay.
ship.
Okay.
That ginormous cargo thing. Do I think that it's going to be a player purchasable thing? Absolutely not. No. But do I think that we will see them flying around in game? Maybe it'll be a player controllable thing. Who knows? It's not a priority for CIG, but I think it's gonna happen eventually. And with the growth in Manchester, with all of CIG essentially adding, you know, I think an additional 700 people over the next 4 or 5 years is their goal.
Hmm.
600 or 700 people. That's a lot of room for a lot more ship devs. They can build a lot more ships.
Yeah.
They're already pretty, have a pretty good ship
And
production
remember,
pipe.
it's not just Squadron 42 that's coming out in the next 2 years, hopefully sometime. There's
Yeah.
also 2 more episodes to go, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be built for them, so that is going to be super interesting. We are
Mhm.
now past 2 hours and 30 minutes.
How long have we been doing? Have you been keeping track? How long have we been doing your scanner anomaly? Just out of curiosity.
Somewhere around 30, just over 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good
Yep.
because we got a lot of ideas, both civilian and
Yeah.
or industry and combat
Industry,
related
combat,
or
and alien. So
civilian.
yeah,
Yeah,
covered our bases.
there's a lot of there's a lot of different ways that could go.
Yeah. So it was a bit of a weirder time with my scare anomaly. That being it more of a discussion, kind of like let's see what we can think of.
Well, but it's something that is a constant point of conversation in the Discord in the circles that you and I run in. So it's
yes,
a
very much
discussion
so.
worth having for sure.
Yeah. So let's see. What all did we cover this episode? We covered. Let's go back to the show notes. We covered the identity crisis of the Starfarer, what it started life as, and all the changes that's happened through it, and what the heck is going on with quantum fuel specifically, and refiners. Now that we have a whole refining ship, we covered tractor beams, and we covered ships that we'd like to see in the in the shorter to nearish future. We also read over the roadmap update, and that's very short this week, but we'll have a hopefully much bigger one next episode. And next episode, we are going to be covering not only the roadmap update, but the monthly report, and also, as always, Spectrum, Pulse, and 2 more scanner anomalies for you. For those listening on podcast places, the show notes will be in the description, and you can go and read through those. There's also going to be links for other places to view this, so if you want any of the visuals, you can go there. There's also going to be Discord links and things, so you guys can also join in the discussion. We love hearing about Star Citizen people, even if you're not a Star Citizen player or you don't like or play Star Citizen. We love just talking about games. So obviously, we love talking about it. So just drop us a line wherever you may be. And then as for the people who's watching this on YouTube, wherever, we will be for this week. We will be releasing the whole podcast and then the sections of the podcast. So if you don't want to watch an entire almost 3 hour show, we'll be breaking this up into smaller bits. And then next week, we're going to try the reverse, see which one works better. I think that's all the housekeeping for this episode. You got anything else, Tree?
No, we've had a number of people watching live and participating in chat, and I just want
Yep.
to say thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you guys joining in on the conversation and your feedback, and glad to have you guys here. Hope to see you on the next one. We will keep our fingers crossed that we've got a juicy roadmap update to dive into.
They can only delay it for
but
so long.
But we'll also have at least a monthly report. So
Yep.
that should be really interesting as well.
And for those of you who don't know, it's not every week, but it's every other Monday. We go ahead and do these podcasts on Twitch. And then we release them within 1 or 2 days onto all of the other social medias, being on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes, and Anchor, I believe, are the 4 places we post this. I think I'm not missing any, so it's my job. I should know where I'm posting it.
Anchor is the thing that puts it out to the other podcast services,
Isn't
right?
it on? Isn't it also a hosting site? I don't remember. It's been 2 weeks since I posted
That's
something.
your
I don't
job,
know. I
Naz.
know it's my job. I should know what I'm doing. Oh, it's because I'm using. What's this called? Oh, that's just the RRS feed or RSS feed. Never mind. So yes, we also have the RSS feed. Everything will be posted in each other's links in all the videos and podcast things, so you'll be able to find your way around to all the other places we use this. Okay, that's it. Let's go. That's it.
Cool.
I'm done. Have a good one, everyone. And
we'll see you.
Yeah, hopefully see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.